host of the 2019 Worlds Group Stage. 16 teams remain in League of Legends' biggest tournament, and with a more open field than ever before, we are set for a very exciting journey. You are watching the arrivals of Fnatic and SKT through the lens of the Oppo Cam with anti-shake technology and a wide-angle feature to make sure you'll see all the best moments from Worlds 2019. There they are, our heroes, and possibly our heroes to be after the first game of the day as SKT is going up against Fnatic. We see them chilling. I think that's apt, getting a little bit of shut-eye before starting the day. Hello everyone, I'm Shox, joined by Raz, VODs and Papa Smithy. Und auch ganz kurz einmal auf Deutsch. Willkommen und herzlich willkommen hier in der VOD Arena. Also a little bit of German as we are in the LEC homestead of Berlin still. But I'm very happy to see our newest additions, namely Raz and Papa Smithy, and always happy to see you, VODs.
I'm excited to be here. It's the World's Group Stage finally upon us, and what a banger of a start with SKT versus Fnatic, joined by some fantastic analysts. We're going to have a great tournament.
Yeah, I'm just excited to be here, walk through the fans, see you guys excited for the games tonight.
That's definitely a yes, Raz, and it's just going to be a great day of matchups. We've got big orgs fighting, we've got play-ins teams making their re-debut. The patch rolls on, Worlds rolls on, it's going to be hype.
Yeah, group stage is always absolutely crazy, and there's much more to be excited for because this year, Riot Games celebrates the 10-year anniversary of League of Legends. And you can join the celebrations from the 15th of October when Riot offices around the world will be spending the day connecting, interacting, and playing games with players. In every region, there will be live-streamed activities and digital experiences shared throughout the day. Don't forget to tune in for the 10th anniversary of Riot Please, broadcast simultaneously across the globe at 6 p.m. Pacific time. 10 years already. Some of us have been around for a very long time, but it's crazy how time flies when you're involved with something as fun as this.
I can so clearly remember creating my account in February 2010. Here we are, 2019 Worlds. I'm one of the old guns.
Yeah.
I think I had more hair back then. But
Maybe
what can you do?
did. Well, I'd lose hair as well if I was playing so much ranked.
That's fair. That's fair.
Really, really
Can be a
stressful.
struggle.
Yeah, that's why we're not pro players. Luckily, we do have a lot of pro players. And last week, we saw Damwon, Clutch Gaming, Hong Kong Attitude, and Splice advance from the play-in stage. Now, if you look at it and take a step back, all 4 of the major regions came out on top. But is the verdict really as clean-cut as that?
I would say yes for the likes of Damwon, because I've seen a hell of a lot of LPL teams go through the system, sweat quite a lot, lose quite a few games, but Damwon came the cleanest out of all of them.
But no one was unscathed. There's still questions for all 4 of these first seeds who beat second seeds, the third seeds, not being able to play in those best of 5. So while it went to plan, if you watched the games, there's still a lot of questions to be asked coming into group stage.
And I feel like the biggest questions go towards Splice, the team that went to all 5 games up against the Unicorns of Love. Us Europeans, definitely a little worried after that performance, but I'm still hopeful that they'll be able to shore up some of their mistakes and they'll be able to get some of the jitters that they've had, given that this is their first one.
Well, some say they've gotten quite the gift in the group draw that took place right after the play-in matches concluded, because this leaves us with these groups for the group stage. It's a point of contention in terms of playstyles in that Group B, but I'd be happy.
Yeah, I mean, Splice is not the only one blessed. Thank God for Fun Plus Phoenix being pulled into Group B. Group B, I've never seen a group just as nice as this one.
Setting yourself up for a precipitous fall. China's been there before. I'm looking at Group C, where you look at this. SKT, Fnatic, Royal Never Give Up. We're talking about 3 of the biggest orgs in League of Legends globally and historically, and only 2 of those can go through.
Meanwhile, you guys are talking about Group C and B. A is scary. G2 have a history of not doing well at World's group stages, okay? I'm a little worried about the amount of hype that's going on to them right now, and I would really
You're trying to anti-jinx by calling it out?
You're anti-jinxing the team that has won everything this year.
Yeah, I think
really
it's necessary, okay?
I don't know.
Anyway, loved hearing your general opinions about the group stage. I know it's above board analyst stuff, but now I want to get your hot takes. The things that are going to shock the crowd and everyone at home. Raz, what's your hot take on the groups?
Nice, nice. I got a bit of a double elbow drop coming. So first and foremost, I think Invictus Gaming are going to be coming up. It's first in Group D.
Oh.
Yes.
Really?
I think a lot of people on the Chinese side also believe the same thing, because at the end of the day, while Summer Split has been really poor from the team, 2018 was fantastic.
Yeah, and that's the word I'm reading here, convincing.
That's the second elbow drop coming down.
You're just really easy to be convinced, I'm pretty sure.
What? Look, just like 2018, coming into this year, I feel like by the end of the tournament, it comes down to the fact that you have 3 incredible players that can hit top 5 very easily. I'm talking about the Shy, Jackie Love, and even Rookie. I know it's been pretty rough for Rookie this split, but he can easily come back up with the training that he's done.
I mean, maybe. But I'm going to hit you with my hot take, Raz, and Papa Smith.
I'm listening.
So my hot take is, and I'm sure it won't be much of a hot take to the fans here, but it is that Fnatic will finish first in their group.
First?
The group with SKT and RNG, Fnatic will finish at the top.
I would love to give our analysts, you get one kind of rebuttal if you don't agree with the hot take, Papa.
I'm closer to agreeing than disagreeing, but
Okay.
I need to see some games on this one. Let's get to our cheeky predictions later on.
Yeah, we will.
So-
I love that hot take. What's yours?
Final hot take here. I'm going to believe in the Marines. I think GAM Esports coming out of their group, no Vietnamese team has ever pushed through their groups. I think everyone around the world is super hyped to see the Marines and what they represent, their innovation, their action back on the world stage. And I think that, again, Splice and some of those opponents there are going to take more games than you might expect.
So you're taking out
first?
Splice? You're taking out Splice?
I'm taking out Splice.
Okay. Kind of a hot take for the Europeans here, but we know what they can do, and we see some highlights from GAM Esports there. They are really the team that elevated the VCS status a couple of years ago, and they're still going strong.
I feel like many are excited for the return of Levi to the international stage. He, along with GAM, are the ones that made a reputation for themselves so many years ago, and I'm excited to see what they can do now that they're back.
And sometimes when these orgs come back, there's been enough shuffling in a couple of years. They're not the same team, right? And you feel like you're hyping up something that's not real. We watched those games. They're still crazy. Some of the names like Levi have gone to North America. They've passed through China and now back into their home region. They're just as spicy as they were before, and they play today.
And the cool thing about these hot takes is that every time in a World's group stage, things do not go as planned, right? They always turn out absolutely crazy. The craziest upsets happen, so I can't wait. And I wonder how many upsets we're going to see today. Let's take a look at the schedule for day one. As said already, SKT versus Fnatic to kick everything off. Couldn't be more beautiful.
How could we not be excited about this matchup? I believe the last time SKT and Fnatic went up against each other was 2015 at MSI, that intense best of 5 between the two organizations. And now we get to see the rematch after all these years, after all this evolution, and we know that both teams are hungry for a win.
And that is, of course, where Febiven made his name, right? Solo killing Faker and having those big performances. So there's been so much history between two orgs that are very notable. And like you mentioned, with RNG in that group, only 2 can get out. And we're, of course, discounting Clutch in that conversation. So there's a lot going on in the group.
That's why I think second game of the day, I know I love the fact that we're just starting off with real bangers, because game 2, Clutch going up against Royal. Going up against such a hectic team, going up against Huni and Damante, I have no idea what to expect. So game 2 is going to say a lot for me.
Yeah, it will. That is RNG versus Clutch. Another one we want to look at is Damwon versus Team Liquid. We had already kind of a look into Damwon Gaming in the play-in stage. They looked very strong aside from some games, but what are we expecting out of this one?
It's very much a matchup where, you can see where the advantages are on paper for both teams. Top side, solo lanes, definitely Damwon Gaming. We already saw Showmaker and Nogari light it up in the play-in stage, but they leave you chances. I feel like Team Liquid plays that calculated bot lane style, and more often than not, they might be able to pull out a win.
You're going to hear a lot about clash of styles this tournament because different regions, different teams are bringing their own flair on how they approach the game. And this is a great benchmark to contrast these different styles. Bot lane versus solo lanes, Team Liquid versus Damwon. It's going to be an exciting one for sure.
And I just don't want people sleeping on Team Liquid because they keep getting stronger. And while we're talking about different styles, well, now they have Jensen, and Impact has been showing incredible stuff in previous tournaments, especially at MSI. So it feels like where you would say it's the strongest for Damwon, they've got good works here for Team Liquid.
I totally agree. Team Liquid looking strong after MSI and another championship. We'll see a lot of spicy games today, and doubtless also a lot of spicy picks. We've seen a lot in the play-in stage, but we're going to discuss which ones are OP and which ones are INT, starting with Pantheon.
OP. I want to see this champion banned throughout the tournament. I think that the strongest aspect about him is not only that he just fully covers the early game, but great support, great mid lane, great jungler and top laner. He is one of the most flexible picks in the tournament.
But he does set a bit of a timer, Raz, because late game he hasn't changed too much in the equation. I agree with you that to open the tournament, like the play-ins, expect him to be banned a lot, but I think he might be figured out. I think by the bracket stage, he could be more on the inside of the spectrum than, of course, that OP nature he sits in right now.
Differing opinions between my analysts, so we'll check in after he gets picked or doesn't get picked after a couple of games. Secondly, I'd like to talk about Syndra. It is a pick we've come to know very, very well this year in several lanes, but how OP or int is she at Worlds?
Personally, I think she's very OP. Right now, she's one of the best blind pickable champions in the game, largely because she can be played in both mid and bot lane. She can even be played in AD carry or support, depending on how risky you feel. But I feel like that there are very few things that can do well into her, and because of her versatility and just power at every stage of the game, she's a very powerful pick right now.
We also know, and we've seen in videos, Perks, for instance, saying to the coach, well, if we pick Syndra here, we've got to win. So we know that it's very specific to some teams at least. But another champion I'd like to talk about, who is quite controversial, Echo. What do we think?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying int, only because I ask myself the question, are there better AP junglers? I think Gragas is a bit busted as a blind pickable jungler at the moment. And then I'll even look towards Elise to say that she's just as strong as well. So I think that Echo works, but not OP.
And if we were wrapping up the show today, 0% win rate in play-ins, it'd be remembered as int, but I think these group stage teams who had a lot of time to prep what is perceived as an OP pick will be able to actually get the true value, set up the comps, and actually get that win rate above 50%. I think the champion's going to be OP when we look back at Worlds 2019 in the future.
Well, he's definitely a unique pick, and it's not the only one that we're looking at, though, because Veigar is another champion that I feel has been rising in popularity with regards to solo queue especially. And I know that we've been seeing it flexed around in a couple of roles. Personally, I think it's a bit of an int pick. I think there are a lot of counter picks to it. Nocturne being one of them, by the way.
Oh,
but it is definitely...
We're there again. We're there again. Oh.
It is definitely a champion that I think, while can be flexible and can fulfill a similar role to Syndra, doesn't have quite that same early game impact that I think ultimately hurts it.
We'll see. Last one I want to talk about is Heimer. I was a bit caught off guard that you wanted to talk about this at all. Why is that? An OP or int?
OP. I love
It's OP.
Heimerdinger. I enjoy him.
I think that he is extremely versatile, primarily in that he can be played in all three lanes. And I think that so far he's not been utilized in the two solo lanes as much as he potentially could be. So as we go through the tournament, I'm hoping that we do get to see more Heimerdinger, because I think that he can offer a lot depending on how you structure a comp around.
Very specific skill set to get the most out of this champion. Obviously, Hjarnan was so renowned for it last year at Worlds. My prediction is OP for about 2 people at this tournament, and int for everybody else.
We'll see. Of course, Hjarnan isn't here, but some of the best players on the planet will take to the stage over the next couple of weeks. And today we'll see the stars of groups B, C, and D. These are our players to watch, and we have to start with the returning unkillable Demon King, the best player of all time, Faker.
We have to start with Faker. This is a man that I put at the top of who I expect to perform at this year's World Championship. I have so much faith in Faker, largely because of his year. He showcased a lot of development, a lot of growth, and I feel like that his synergy that he's built with Clid has elevated him and his team to a point where they should be vying for that World Championship title.
And I think mid to late game, he's exactly the Faker you remember from all those previous championships. Worst finish ever at Worlds of 2nd place 2 years ago. I will say that laning-wise, some of those young guns like Chovy at times have been able to punish him, but playoffs, man, was he looking good.
Yeah, that's why I would take recency into the equation. He's looking really good coming into the tournament.
Absolutely, and going up against Reckless in that first game, and that is coincidentally also the second player we want to talk about on Fnatic, kind of an icon in the LEC and in the European region overall. And after last year, definitely has a score to settle.
Yeah, I mean, 7 years of competitive play for the man, 4 championships in Europe. Like, he's been on the field for so long. He has all the excuse in the world to just stick to what he knows best, but he's made that big change this year, showcasing a lot of the Garen and Yuumi, the Karma play as well. He's made that major shift, and it really is nice to see.
And what I admire about Reckless as a player is that last year when he made it to the World Finals, he only saw that as a failure. This man is constantly driving and thirsty to be the best, and I feel like that this year has no exception.
And I love in this group kind of the juxtaposition of how some teams like to play bot lane, and then other teams like RNG with Uzi, who go all in on the marksman still and doesn't show that versatility, but he really doesn't need to. Look at those stats.
It just works. you know, people would call him the best AD carry historically.
Sure.
Because of the fact that you can constantly play through him, RNG plays through him at all times of the game, and he makes it happen, so incredibly reliable on the field.
And it feels a bit faded that we have both RNG and G2 at this tournament, because remember, it was last year that the golden road to winning every title in a year, never done before in League of Legends history, was interrupted by G2, and now G2 are looking for the Grand Slam. And who's to say we might not see those teams face off in the future?
Oh,
Uzi's hungry for revenge.
definitely is. Still no Worlds title, and that is what he is always chasing. We talked about a lot of people that have been around for a long time, have built up a big legacy, but I'm also looking at some new blood. For instance, the new LCK superstar Nogari in that top lane, who is crazy. He kills a lot of people, he also dies a lot, but it's awesome to watch.
And isn't it nice when the play-in stage actually summarized both those sides, but the pop-off moments that we're going to get in these reels shows you what this player has in terms of a limitless potential to be another of those top lane stars. I think we're definitely going to see OP and int from him over the course of this series, not just the segment before.
I feel like a lot of people look at Nogari and think that he's inconsistent, but I actually believe that he is incredibly consistent in his playstyle. The question is, can you punish it and can you shut it down? And even if you can, is that enough? Because this guy is always willing to carry and will do his best to bring his team as far as he can.
He'll always push up, but there's that skill check, Vedius. You'll find him where you think you'll find him, but then you gotta out-micro him, and that's a different kettle of fish.
And I think he can just change the meta, or at least for top laners, solo. Just like the fact that he's consistently going towards the Kleptomancy, the AP champions that he's been going towards so frequently. He reminds me of the 2018 The Shy, and he's still in the damn tournament.
Yep.
So that's a matchup I want to be looking for.
That's high praise for a world champion there to equate it with Nogari with. We'll see how he evolves, but someone we have to talk about if it's players to watch on day one. Another legend in the bot lane, Doublelift, who is going to play with Team Liquid later in the day against Damwon. Same story, really. A guy's been so influential for the region for so long, chasing that Worlds title.
Many fans are excited for this Team Liquid because the reality is this is the best roster that North America has ever produced, and at the forefront is Doublelift alongside superstar Core JJ in the bot lane. This duo is looking primed and poised to challenge the best that the world has to offer, and while there are many doubters, there are also many believers that they can do it.
And honestly, this comes to a point where you do have the utmost faith in Team Liquid at this tournament, because not only is it about Doublelift and Core JJ, you have Jensen in your mid lane. And then you have Impact, who's been incredibly consistent at the top side of the map. I feel like I look at Team Liquid, and they should be incredibly confident coming into this one.
Are they winning their first game versus Damwon?
Oh!
That's a later discussion.
That's a late...
Okay, we'll just see if there's consistency there, but it's very hard to predict these games. So we're going to hone in on our first game of the day at the Verti Hall. SKT versus Fnatic, a perfect way to start the group stage 2 of the biggest organizations in EU and Korea. And I want to start with SK Telecom, 3 Worlds titles, and you almost need an hour to explain everything they have achieved and done for League of Legends.
Yeah, an SKT monologue would be an hour long. They have their 8 domestic titles, 3 World Championships, their lowest ever finish of 2nd at the World Championship, and have only ever lost to teams that went on to win championships or just won it straight up themselves. Compared to 2 years ago, their last Worlds visit, Faker, Coma still around, all the other pieces changing around them, and even thinking of MSI, we do have a change with effort, amping up the laning phase 2v2 coming into the bot lane.
The thing is, you always have to respect SK Telecom coming into these tournaments. I love what Papa Smithy was saying, that their worst performance at Worlds is finishing 2nd place.
Yeah.
This team is always capable of preparing and coming up clutch when it matters the most.
Can I get a sign or a show of hands, rather, as to who thinks this is a top 3 team at Worlds?
Oh, 100%.
Hard not to say that.
Yeah,
Where's everyone else's
hands?
hands? Where are you guys at?
That's a lot of hands. A lot of hands.
All right, there we
Sure,
go.
absolutely, and I think that's just to emphasize not only what they showed at MSI, which was so good for a team that has only been together then a couple of months. They'll be so strong coming into this World Championship, but it is a question if they'll be firing at all cylinders in this game 1. They're up versus Fnatic, and when you talk about history in a region, they are the most historic team in EU, and when it comes to international competition, they have an incredibly high pedigree as well.
7 European titles, many quarterfinal appearances, semifinals appearances. Last year, it was a World Final finals appearance, the first one since Season 1 where they won it all. Fnatic is one of the most storied organizations in history, and everyone around the world recognizes the name, especially with the caliber of talent that this team produces.
If we look at this year, for people who might not know it, of course, Caps is on G2. You'd have to be pretty not clued in to know that. But Nemesis has stepped into that lineup, and you would think that is a big mountain to climb. But they have changed their playstyle, and they have formed that team to be successful again. Even though they were second to G2 this year, we have high hopes.
Yeah, they feel like a real machine. Because if we were just talking about like Nemesis being brought into the roster, remember at the very beginning of the year, Bwipo became that top laner, no longer sharing a role. So you can just bring in a new member into the team, they fit like right in like a glove. So this team looks incredible coming right now.
And Fnatic have this history of producing fantastic mid lane talent. We had Expeke, we had Febiven, we had Caps. Now it is the time for Nemesis to prove what he's capable of on the international stage, and what better way to do it than against Faker himself.
Absolutely. Can't believe you didn't mention Magic Felix, but that's okay. For more on Fnatic, let's hear from their jungler.
Thank you very much, Shox. Laure here, and joining me right now is Broxah ahead of the big game against SK Telecom today. Thank you very much for joining me. You're here as one of the returning players from Worlds 2018. Is it fair to say that you have something to prove after last year's finals?
Last year's final was a pretty big disappointment for all of us. We obviously came into the final with high hopes of winning it all, and those hopes got crushed pretty quickly. So this time around, we want to do even better than last year. We want to come out swinging, if you can put it that way, and we're hoping to get a good start here against SKT today.
Yeah, I guess you have the perfect way to have a first training. I know that it's going to be a very important matchup for you, especially in the jungle against Clid, because we know how instrumental he's been in every SKT's victories. So can you let me know how the early game is going to go for you, and how do you shut him down?
I think it's about more than just the junglers today, honestly. I think the entire teams are going to, like all our teammates are going to change how we play, and I think the mid-jungle 2v2 especially is going to be important today. And normally if you go up against Clid and Faker, you're going to be pretty afraid, but I think Nemesis Broxah at this point is a pretty scary duo as well, and I think we're going to be able to handle them all right.
I know you and Clid share one pick in particular, so are you going to prioritize Lee Sin, or is this one just going to sit on the bench?
I guess we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, it's not entirely in my power whether or not I play Lee Sin every game, so it depends a bit on how the draft goes, about the coaches, what they think, and yeah, I don't know. Both Clid and I haven't prioritized Lee Sin as much as we did in the past recently, and maybe it's gonna, appear today, maybe not. I'm not sure, honestly. We'll see how it goes.
Should you be afraid of a returning SK Telecom T1 team? Because the last time they came back after missing Worlds was in 2015 in Europe, and we all know how it went.
Honestly, I'm not too afraid today. Like going into Worlds the previous years, I was pretty nervous. But today, I don't really care who we go up against. I don't care if it's SKT or someone else. I'm gonna go in with the same mindset that I always do, and I'm gonna stay confident. And I think we have a really good shot of winning today.
I like the confidence from you guys. Now, last question. I heard that some of you guys were a bit ill. Is it gonna impact the game?
So it is no secret that both Joey, Bwipo, and I have been really sick the previous days, but unfortunately I woke up this morning and I started feeling a lot better. And either way, I don't think any of us is going to be impacted by a little bit of sickness. We're going to give it 100% when we're on the Rift today, and then if my throat is going to hurt a little more after, then worth it, whatever, I don't care. Just need to give it all today either way.
Well, I'm really glad to hear this. Thank you very much, Broxah, and good luck on the first game. Now back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Laure. Broxah, who has really become that rock and that figurehead for Fnatic in the last couple of years. And I also love that fighting spirit of saying we might be a little ill, but who cares? We're still going to give it our all and try to win this game today.
Yeah, expectations should be high on their own shoulders, especially after making it to the World Finals last year. But the big thing is that we're seeing a different Fnatic from what we saw last year, because it's not about the team fighting as much as it was. It's much more about early game impact. Broxah and Hylissang looking to attack the side lanes early. Things like the Twisted Fate, Nocturne, Shen. You're going to be seeing so much more fighting and attacking the side lanes and just skirmishing from this Fnatic team, because that is how they like to play and that is how they find their way.
Yeah, and just watching the Fnatic versus G2 finals is the most fun event I've seen, because Fnatic ramped it up a notch. They looked incredible, and while you talked about the playstyle being able to hit it early, like, I also already alluded to the draft. Incredibly creative, and I think SKT's coming into this one not knowing exactly what they're going up against.
And there's just no Korean team that plays like Fnatic and G2 with those super high intensity, high octane early games. Yes, there's relative style differences, but no one quite as just all in as Fnatic and G2, and that's going to be something they're going to have to grapple with in the first game of the day.
All in is the right word. They have the best first blood percentage out of everyone at Worlds, but they kill a lot pre-15 minutes, but VODs, they also die a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's exemplified in one of their most important members, Hylissang.
Yes, it is Hylissang, but I wanted to draw attention to him for a different reason, because I feel that he is the best performing player on Fnatic coming into this tournament, and I think that European supports will be a large part of changing the perception and impact that supports have in this tournament. Both Hylissang and Mickey love to roam. They love to move towards their mid lane, and a large part of where Fnatic's early game success comes from is this support player. So I have very high expectations for Hylissang today.
That's a lot about Fnatic, and I think that is deserved, seeing how they play in the early game, Papa. But we also need to talk about SKT. Is that going to be an issue for them in the early game? Because they have also ramped it up as of late.
I think definitely Hylissang and kind of the 3v3, that extension of mid, jungle, and support roaming in, is where Fnatic could potentially have a big advantage. Effort's a great laning support, but isn't as known for his roaming. Obviously can do it, but that's where Hylissang is absolutely going to be strong. And at the end of the day, SKT need Clid to set the pace in the early game. SKT for the longest time, Faker dominating in mid, Bengi, other junglers roll in, give him vision, he'll do the job himself. The game has evolved a lot since then, and now it really is a jungle-led SKT for the first time in the history of this organization.
Yeah, they look scary. And also just taking a note of the lanes as well, because going through the playoffs that they had, a lot of the laners just went wild. So Faker's a great example of that. Teddy and Effort, as you've already have mentioned, have looked strong. So going into Fnatic, while true, drafting and everything you cannot prepare for, I think SKT, they already learned a valuable lesson at MSI that early game picks matter. So I don't think they're going to get caught up by that.
And you look at the stats here, and specifically in kills and assists of 15, Korean region always going to be a lot less bloody, less action, so 18th there. But look at this kill participation of 15. If Clid goes somewhere, things get going, highest kill participation of any jungler at this tournament. And if we keep hearing that name from the casting team, Clid, in the early game, that's going to be an SKT victory.
And I definitely hope that we see all that action materialize on the Rift, because sometimes you don't know what you're going to get in those first games. But I do know that I'm going to get your predictions, and I'm really excited for these. Raz, who's going to win and why?
All right. I already have SKT taking this game right from the get-go. I think they learned their lessons from MSI and approaching international events. And also, I just think that they're one of the favorites to win the damn tournament.
I agree that they're one of the favorites to win the tournament, Raz. However, I have a lot of faith in the mid-jungle support synergy. Game one, it's going to go to Fnatic. I believe that Hylissang will be the difference maker, and I have faith that they will be taking game one today.
All right.
So that leaves me as the deciding vote, I guess, on this side.
I know exactly what we got here.
But what I'll remember is that Worlds is a marathon, not a sprint. And day one SKT, just like we saw at MSI, is not the same SKT that ends a tournament. So I actually think Fnatic's going to take it today. They play a high-octane style. They're a team that can really take action. The fans seem to appreciate that one. But all I can say is, remember, SKT rolled in a couple of days ago. They've got no time to scrim all the European teams and understand the play-ins and maybe the local meta, so I think they might get a masterclass of it really early.
The fan votes too, huh?
Might as well be.
Weird. Well, best of luck, Raz. I'm sure.
Where are the Korean fans at?
I think they're there. They have a lot of faith in the long-term plan for SKT. However, yeah, we're saying a Fnatic win is the majority on this desk, but you never know what's going to happen. Such an important game where we've got two Titans clashing on the Rift as we kick off 8 days packed with action here in Berlin. The World's group stage starts right now.